Let's get weird. Did you know that in 2002 a UFO struck a train in Paintsville, Kentucky? I didn't expect you to know that because I didn't even know that until about 2 years ago. And I've lived in Pikeville for the last 8 years before moving here. So let's talk about it. I haven't been able to find pictures. I'm not sure why, but there's just not any pictures. There are witness accounts though of the conductor and the men that were on the train when this took place. So at 2:47 a.m. January 14, 2002, the engine and first two cars after the engine were severely damaged by a head-on collision with a UFO. The train was traveling from Russell, Kentucky to Shelbyana, Kentucky, and it was following along a route that was apparently in a really bad curve. Now, one of the workers on the train says that he knows for sure that it was 2:47 a.m. because his watch froze at the exact moment that the collision took place. And it has remained frozen on that time to this day. Along with his watch right before the collision took place, the entire electrical system and the computer system that was on the train went completely haywire. Now, this happened in a part of the tracks that's called the Wild Kingdom due to the fact of how many wild animals are spotted in that area. And the witnesses account seeing lights coming directly towards them, which wasn't abnormal because on the other side of the tracks is where the train would pass by each other. So they thought that it was just another train coming, would pass on the other side of the tracks, there'd be no issue. However, as they got close, the computer system went haywire, the alarm bells start to ring, every computer and alarm system that they had went completely off, nothing was working, and the lights began to get brighter. It was at that point that they saw the flying object, which there actually appeared to be 3 of them. They were hovering between 10 to 12 feet above the tracks, and it looked as if they were scanning the river looking for something. It was reported to be metallic silver, had lights around the edges and in the middle, had no windows or openings that they could see, and was about 18 feet long and maybe 10 feet high. As they rounded the corner and they had no computer system, they couldn't really make any noise, but they did what they could. And at that point, the first object did not move in enough time, and they hit it head on at about 30 to 60 miles per hour. They had roughly 16,000 tons on the train behind them, and it clipped the top of the train and took out the window, and then apparently sliced off the top of the train and 2 train cars. The other objects at that time completely vanished, and at that point, they employed their emergency brakes. At that point, they completely stopped, the power was restored, and then they could let their dispatcher know who was located in Jacksonville, Florida, what had just happened. I'm going to paraphrase this because I have little to no knowledge about the entire system of a train, but during the call to Jacksonville, Florida, they were told to check the train and see if the train could move on the tracks long enough to get off of the tracks, and they were instructed to pull into what used to be Paintsville Train Yard, which is no longer an operating yard. When they checked the train, the engine itself was really messed up, and they didn't believe that it would hold as it was smoking and everything. But the 2 cars did look as if it could hold, so they were able to move to Paintsville Yard. So they were able to make it to Paintsville Yard at 5:15 a.m. and they immediately noticed that the overhead lights that would be on the yard in any regular train yard were noticeably dark. At the time of them pulling in, they noticed a lot of rail officials were sitting there, and as soon as the train stopped, it sounded like an army of guys just rushing towards the train. Doors slamming, vehicles stopping, voices, everything you can think of, just a mass amount of people. Now, witness accounts say that the cars that were parked there said railroad official, but there were actually no railroad officials. It was guys in weird outfits and a man named Ferguson. At this point, one of the railroad officials states that he was brought into the office with Ferguson, asked hundreds of questions, was told absolutely nothing, and then was told for their safety that they would be medically tested and cleared before they were allowed to leave. Once they exited the office, they noticed that the weird things just kept happening, like the train cars that had been damaged had been removed from the train and had been placed inside this massive, almost like circus tent with lots of people inside of it, and they were told due to national security, they were asked to not speak about anything. They were then put into actual railroad official cars, taken to Martin, Kentucky, and were then asked more questions by actual railroad officials and then drug tested. They were then sent to Shelbyana, Kentucky, where they were originally going anyway, and at that point when they passed by where the trains had been parked, there was no sign of the train cars, the tent, or any of the people. This was in an 8-hour span. Everything was gone. I was actually able to find one picture. This is the picture. You can see that the window is gone, and then you can see there's damage right here, and that would be where it sliced off the top of the train. This is something you're welcome to research yourself. There's limited information on it due to the fact that they probably were told not to speak out about it. But if you Google UFO and train accident, Paintsville, Kentucky, it will pop up. It will show you the same picture that I just showed you, as well as the witness accounts of what actually happened.